to the chat with Illuminessence. Today I'm here with a remarkable young femme leader, Minette Kamara, who is just doing amazing things that I can't wait for her to share with you today. So, Minette, welcome to the show. It's such an honor to be here with you. Could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Thank you for having me. My name
Thanks
is
for being here.
Minette Kamara, as she said. I live in Chicago, Illinois, and I currently work in awareness for human trafficking. And I am all about empowerment of young women and young adults.
And she's saying it in a modest way, but what she does is absolutely not modest. She works for the state of Illinois. And tell us some of the people you train and what your training is about. I know you've talked about it briefly about human trafficking, but just give us a glimpse into your professional life and what excites you about it.
So I train attorneys, I train judges, I train social workers, pastors, general community members, parents, and it's all focused around recognizing what human trafficking is. A lot of people have this idea that human trafficking only occurs internationally, or they believe that it is a movie that they've seen. And my job is to break down those stereotypes and really teach them that this is something that's happening next door to us, and get them to recognize what those red flags are. Can they recognize what human trafficking is? What are the different signs? What are the different symptoms? And I love that because I'm a woman, and for us, it's very easy for us to fall vulnerable to the traps of the outside world.
Absolutely.
And as teenagers coming up in society, you have different temptations and you want to fit in, and recognizing and knowing that it is so easy to fall prey, you know. And so I love teaching and opening people's eyes on the reality of what exactly is human trafficking, because human trafficking is modern day slavery. It's exploitation, it's abuse, it's forcing anyone to do something against their will. So when we think about it from that perspective, it hits closer to home than just what we see on TV.
Exactly, and I think I like the aspect of you really bringing it close to home, because for a long time people always thought of human trafficking as something that happens globally.
Right.
And when you can actually say, but it's happening right in the United States or in Canada, it happens so close to home. And a lot of times even people that you're stunned to find out are actually a part of, because it's a whole it's almost like a syndicate. There are so many people involved in this trade that's affecting women, especially, and children.
Absolutely.
So that's a little bit about your work. But growing up, did you really see yourself doing this, or what is it that inspired you to want to go into this line of career?
Growing up, I always knew that I wanted to help people. And specifically, I knew I wanted to help women and children. I used to want to be a pediatrician. And as I started, you know, the science courses and the math courses, I quickly realized that was not my strong suit. So I went the social services way. And being a woman and being mature, my strength comes from my mother, and seeing her fight and her blood and sweat and tears and all the adversities and the things that she faced to raise the young woman that I am. I knew that I had to pay homage to that. And so for me, I always knew that my number one purpose in life is to advocate and be a voice for those who do not have a voice. And that has been my mantra. That has carried me throughout all my years of education and everything that I am passionate about.
And there is a common thread too, I think, because I know you've also worked in children's services in the state of Illinois. So just tell me a little bit more about also your former or previous work, because it's almost like a thread that has just continued, and it's really good when you can demonstrate that consistency. Sometimes it might be in a different capacity or in a different organization or a different title, but really you can pursue the same passion just in different realms over time?
So I started in the foster care system, social services. I originally started off as a treatment coordinator. So I was providing treatment, therapy, and then I quickly moved up in the ranks and became a manager and started managing a licensed foster care placement agency. And I loved it, but there was a lot of burnout. It was a lot of stress, a lot of emotions, because it's hard to not bring that home with you. You know, and as a young woman who is wanting to have relationships and be around family, you quickly get bogged down by these problems. And we have a tendency, being in social service, to fix things.
To fix it.
But we can't fix it.
At all.
And so knowing you can't fix something and feeling helpless, I found myself in a position of, what do I do next? Because I still wanted to help women and children. And as I went through my courses, I decided to do my dissertation on human trafficking, specifically comparing Sierra Leone to other countries. I quickly realized that Sierra Leone was not a country that people recognized human trafficking for. So it just spurred in me an excitement to dig up more information and find out more information. And I just thought, there's something going on behind the scenes. There's a lot of domestic violence. There's a lot of rape. There's a lot of sexual assault, lots of molestation that no one is paying attention to.
And re-victimization too.
Exactly.
Because when you dare come out and talk about it,
exactly.
you get re-victimized all over again, or stigmatized by society.
And there's that, we are taught to be strong. So we're taught to hold our own and not speak of things to other people. We sweep it under the rug. And so there's this taboo of, no, you weren't traumatized. No, you didn't go through abuse. You're a woman. This is what you do. You're supposed to have patience. But they don't realize the effect that it has on us. And as we get older, that stays with us. And that affects our relationships. It affects how we do life. It affects our self-esteem as women and how we see ourselves. So I slowly started making the shift, still staying within the social services, advocacy, trying to bring justice, but I then started making the shift toward human trafficking, focusing on policies, learning about policies that were already in place, how they affect women and children, and what I could do to facilitate.
And I think that's the thing about social work, or when you're theoretically, when you're in school or university, you think, I'm going to come out, I'm going to fix it. But you get to that place when you realize, well, I can't fix it. So maybe doing policy work or advocacy or training that will bring awareness is still a way I can help make a positive impact. So you did your undergrad in the States, obviously. What did you do your graduate studies in, and where?
I did my graduate studies in marriage and family therapy at the University of Indianapolis, and then I went on to pursue my doctorates of law, so my Juris Doctorate at Leone University in Chicago.
Wow. And talk about a busy life. So we're going to be right back to talk a little bit more with Minette about all the other exciting things she's doing. This is just a tip of the iceberg. We'll be right back with the chat. Welcome back to the chat with Illuminessence. I'm here with the remarkable young Fem-Leader Minette Kamara. So we've been talking about Minette's work, which is astounding considering just the depth of the work she does, but also the need for it and the necessity at this time when human trafficking is just such a growing phenomenon that's impacting so many lives, women and children. And I know we've not talked about this earlier in our conversation, but do you also think, knowing, being that you're from Sierra Leone and we had such a traumatic war, do you think that experience might have also ignited this passion within you to really be this advocate for women? Because there was so much trauma that women experienced during that war, and children that we're still living with today. So can you tell me a little bit about whether there was any impact in that really has fueled this passion of yours?
Absolutely. I came to the States when I was young. I was 9 years old. And for me, my mom, like I said, she has always been a pillar of hope. It was just her and I have an older brother and my father, but it was just her and I. And to watch my mom struggle to survive and to provide me with an education. I remember one time we hit hard times. We didn't have any family members.
And this was in Chicago?
This was in Atlanta.
Atlanta, okay.
And we were trying to make it. We were trying to survive. We had nothing, no one to turn to. And my mother looked at me and said, "You are a girl, and I will make sure that you have an education if it's the last thing I have to do." So for me, education has always been important. And as I grew older and more mature and studied and really learned, I always told myself that I will go back and make an impact. And I will be that person that changes the stigma, that changes the way people think about mental health and trauma and the way they look at it, because our country is filled with it.
Absolutely.
And coming to the States at a young age and having to go through my own trauma of leaving my country and my family behind, naturally, I followed a career in which allowed me to learn and soak up as much knowledge as I possibly can to be able to go back and impart wisdom and make the change that I believe that I can.
And I'm really glad you touched on that, because myself being a victim of having to move to the U.S. during right after the war in '97, we carry with us so much trauma from that experience. And right off the bat, again, there's another similarity, just struggling to survive. You didn't even have time to say, let me just take this in, reflect on this traumatic experience. It was all about survival, trying to study and get on your feet and support family back home. So I think you're so right when you talk about mental health not being addressed at all, and the trauma will occur with us. So I think it's so necessary that you can provide that resource. Hopefully in the future you'll be able to help with that, to really help women to talk about these things that are affecting us and share this pain that we suffered through that experience. And I know you're doing something back home, so tell me a little bit. I know your family is doing a lot back home to address these issues. So tell me a little bit about all the amazing work your family is doing back home.
So my family, we have a blind school in McKinney that is geared toward kids who have lost their parents during the war, and they are all blind amputees. So we go back every year, sometimes twice a year, to just make sure that they're okay. We've built a school, a dormitory style, and just taking care of their needs, from school to shelter to food, everything that they need, because when we found them, they were staying in an abandoned animal slaughterhouse. And for us...
And this was when? As recent? Like
this
how many years
was
ago?
in 2008.
Wow.
And my mom actually, she found them, and she came back to us and said, we have to do something. And we just took it upon ourselves as a family. And from there, about 3 years ago, I started Pearls of Wisdom. My intent with Pearls of Wisdom was focusing on secondary school-aged girls, empowering them, educating them, but also creating a safe home for them, focusing on those that have been sexually exploited. What a lot of people do not realize is in Sierra Leone, we have a culture to let other people raise our children. And what they do not realize,
it takes a village.
It does. However, what they do not realize is giving your child up to someone whom you may not know or you're not familiar with, you are creating an open door for trafficking. In Sierra Leone, a lot of the girls and boys who get trafficked, they end up in Lebanon, Italy, France, because a lot of them want a better life. A lot of them are promised good jobs, good paying jobs. And so a lot of parents leave their children, which is understandable because they can't afford to provide the lifestyle for them. But I think not having that knowledge, we don't realize that we're setting our children up, and being a country that's not educated on that, and we choose to close our eyes and pretend like it doesn't happen, it's setting us up for failure as a country.
And
because
endangering
exactly,
our
children are being raped, they're being molested, they are being trafficked. Guinea borders Cambia, and that's one of the main areas that children are being trafficked in and out. And people do not realize the occurrence that's happening. We have police officers that are not equipped, they're not trained, they cannot handle these cases because they themselves don't even know what to look out for.
Because really, if somebody comes through the border and they just say, I'm traveling with my child, like what is in place to say, okay, we need this ID? Like,
exactly.
You know, I think it's, right now, definitely there is not, obviously I don't want to assume, but from what you're saying, there's not a lot in place right now in terms of checks and balances. And I really like what you touched upon, that your mom came back and said, let's do this, because I think a lot of times part of what I've learned here, whether it's community development or any form of community building, it's really individuals also taking upon themselves to say, how can we improve things in our society, what can we do better? And I think the more people that continue to do that are in the diaspora, it will really expedite development or even awareness in our country.
And I am a firm believer of each one teach one. Had it not been for my mother, who is so strong and could not give me anything at that time, but made sure I had an education, I would not know where I would be apart from the grace of God. So I always told myself, as a female, if I could teach another young woman how to love yourself and carry yourself and know these signs, they then can teach someone, and it can be a domino effect, because I can't save everyone, but we can all teach each other. And that's why Pearls of Wisdom, it's my passion, it's my baby, it's my heart. It's all about empowering each other, and they themselves, they go out and empower each other and empower their communities and work.
Well, it's really that domino effect, right? So that's what we're hoping to achieve. Well, I know we've talked a lot about all of this amazing work you're doing. I don't even know how you ever have time for fun, but we're gonna find out as soon as we get back with the chat with Illuminessence. Thanks for watching. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the chat with Illuminessence. So I'm here with Minette Kamara. We've talked a lot about the work she's doing, but you have to at least make some time to play every now and then, or at least have a social life or have some romance in your life. Which, on that note, congratulations, because I know you recently got married. So let's talk a little bit about love. No, but on a more serious note, because I know a lot of times when you go through so much trauma, you almost shut the door even to want to love. Oh yeah. And allow yourself to be vulnerable. So what did he do to charm you to finally be vulnerable and fall in love? And tell me about the wedding, just the experience of the wedding back home.
A lot of prayers. You know, you're absolutely right. When you experience trauma, not only external but internally, you build a wall. It becomes your MO, it becomes your defense. And so you do not allow people to enter certain barriers that you have set up because you want to protect yourself. And we go through life thinking, I'm strong, I'm tough, I'm hard, you can't break me. But we're humans and we crave love, we crave that attention. So having that self-awareness and being able to deal with your trauma and face it and say, this is what I've experienced. I'm in this field because of my experiences, but I will no longer subject myself to be a victim of my past and my circumstances. And you work through it. It's not easy and it doesn't happen overnight, but you continue to put one foot in front of the other. And slowly you start to let your guard down and start to believe that you can trust people and that not everyone is bad. You know, and so
somebody's coming to love you. And then you're broken heart.
Exactly. So that was the process for me. A lot of soul searching, a lot of healing, because prior to my husband, I was completely blocked because of trauma. So I already had it in my mind that no, this this is your boundaries and you're not getting close enough to hurt me because I will not give you that satisfaction. Yeah. So it was a lot of healing and a lot of prayers. I'm very spiritual and my faith is everything to me. So a lot of prayers, a lot of working through that trauma and knowing, okay, Minette, you've come this far. You can no longer allow yourself to live in your past and be a victim.
So going back and experiencing the joyful day with family and friends back home, what was the highlight of the wedding, and what were you so happy to see when you went back home?
You know, the wedding was very chaotic, and to be quite honest, I wanted it to be... Is it
logistic chaos?
Yes, okay. It was logistic chaos. Okay. Going back home is always a time of joy. It's a celebration. It's seeing family members and childhood friends and, you know, gisting and having that good laugh. But the process, it was challenging. But I remember there was one specific moment when I entered the church. I was still very nervous, very shaky. I entered the church and he looked at me and took my hand and said, I have you now.
That's so sweet.
We'll be okay. And for me, it was, okay.
He's
got me.
I can't let go now.
Because up until that moment, I still was that tough girl persona because, you know, I mean business, and just because I'm getting married does not mean, you know how we think as women.
Know, you think you got that,
right, exactly. And so knowing that he was man enough to recognize it and say, it's okay, baby, I got you. We'll be fine. Just pretend like no one else is here. It's just you and I. And immediately there was that sigh of relief, like, okay, Minette, enjoy your day.
Moment,
exactly,
right?
exactly.
Well, I'm glad you enjoyed the moment, and I'm so happy for you. But now, obviously, I know we're waiting for the reunion.
yes, we are.
But so, what are you looking forward to in this new chapter in your life now? Because it's a different dynamic when you're single and focused on your career, and then when you get married. Because I know, obviously, being Africans, and I know the next thing's Minette or the grandkids.
Right.
So now that you're embarking on this next chapter of your life where you're going to be balancing career and personal life, what are you most excited about, and how do you plan to juggle it all?
I think for me, having a life partner, that best friend, you know, once again, I'll thank my mom because she did really well in raising me. And so for me, I've always loved cooking. I've always considered myself old school when it came to the role of a husband and a wife. I don't mind taking care of my man. I don't mind taking care of my home. But being a woman, I also have my aspirations. And for me, it's knowing that I am married and it's God and family first, but not forgetting myself and not forgetting my dreams, because it doesn't stop when you get married. It's a blessing and it's a beautiful thing, but it doesn't stop. Just like he has his own dreams and aspirations, but it's our job to build each other up and help each other and not forget those things because we're married. So in this new chapter, it's all about embracing being a married woman, but also, okay, Minette, now you've crossed over. What's the next step? And unfortunately, my husband's not here yet.
He's on his way.
And he is, but that but that provides me some time to do some things, you know, that I would like to do, whether it's reading a new book every month or trying out a new recipe or, you know, whatever it is. I just have to make sure that I don't lose myself and I think it's so
important that you touched on that, because a lot of women fall victim to this, where they get married, or even not forget married, even just being in a relationship, they get lost in that relationship where it's almost like it becomes the us versus the me. I know you're no longer a person, you're almost like an item, right? So I think it's so good that you're aware of that, and you're going to try to build your life more as growing together as a couple and pursuing each of your passions and goals, but ultimately not forgetting or losing sight of the fact that you are also now a family. So I think it's going to be great, and I wish you all the best, continued success. And just before we go, tell our viewers just something fun to do in Chicago. So if they're ever in the area visiting, what is a good spot to go to, or what's great about the city?
Well, I am a food connoisseur, so I love eating out. They have amazing steak houses. Mastro's a really good steakhouse. Anything in Chicago. I love food. I love food. That's what I
come to Chicago and eat all
go
the
to
good
food.
Like,
I mean, we you know, you have the touristy sites. We have a place in Millennial Park called the Bean that every tourist likes to go see. They have the Sears Towers, the Hancock Building. But if you're like me and enjoy food, that's I mean, just go and get food.
Well, there you have it. Don't worry, if you're ever in Chicago, Minette will be your tour guide to all the restaurants. Just contact us. We can hook you up with her.
Absolutely.
But no, her information will be on the screen. So if you need to contact her, connect with her. It's so important for us that people connect with each other, because you never know how connections are made. Like you connected with Grace and Illuminating Ladies, and there's just, now here we are chatting. So there's just this domino effect that happens with just that one connection. So you will have your information up, and people can feel free to contact Minette for any information about Pearls of Wisdom, the School for the Blind, or the work she's doing. If you have questions as an aspiring young femme leader, if you want to ask her about her career, or maybe how to pursue a certain job that you think might work in the field that she's in, that aligns with the field that she's in, whatever it is, feel free, connect with her or connect with us. Follow us, like us on Facebook, go to our website, illuminescencemag.com. Our goal is to celebrate, illuminate, and inspire young femme leaders and guys who get it, and honor the legacy of those that have come before us. I really love what you talked about your mom, because we are who we are because of what they've done for us and the examples they've set. So I give all honor and praise to her for what she's done, because you're an absolutely remarkable young woman, and I wish you all the best. And it's such an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching, and keep illuminating.